least one of these sessions. All right, so it should be recording now. And here is our helpful link today. So this is kind of my master slide deck. You have this and you'll have access to anything and everything that I share. And you'll be set once you have that, okay? So we are here to do our first make and take session. So like I said, a make and take, the gist behind it, like the name implies, is that you make something and you also take an idea from someone else. So ultimately, you start building something you can use in your learning environment, your role, group of students that you work with, and you share that out with everyone else. They can borrow your idea. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to make a whole finished product today. That's perfectly okay as well. You can at least get started and borrow from some of the ideas that I'll have on here for you. So specifically, we are going to be talking about choice boards or learning menus. Really, either one of those terms can be used interchangeably. So choice boards are a really great way to provide your students with options. So options give students freedom to be in the driver's seat and really kind of progress them towards that ultimate goal in UDL, which is expert learners. It's also great to provide students with options because it could be more exciting and engaging for them if they see something that they prefer to learn from or something that gets them excited. It's also great for just giving students options and really make a more accessible learning environment as well. So some of our students need to have choice in learning resources. That could be a choice board that you create by giving them different options in the material that they can use to learn the concepts. Or maybe it's giving them choice in how they can show their understanding. So the different project options they can do or ways to show their understanding. Lots of different flexibility and pieces there. Now I'm going to show you a couple of different ways of structuring this to maybe where you're giving options and you're using a choice board for bell ringers, for study guides or study activities, for structuring a whole lesson, and then really giving students options to show their understanding as well. So I have a little bit of everything on here. Don't feel like you have to click through every single resource. I made this for the whole district, so it's a lot of grade levels and content areas. So I wanted to put examples on here for everyone if I possibly could. That's kind of the rough overview of what we're going to do today. So I'm going to show you some tips and some tools that you can use. I'm going to show you some examples and templates that you can borrow and copy and start customizing for your student or an upcoming lesson or unit or activity you want to do. And then I'm also going to have you add a resource or something that you plan to use onto a shared slide deck so we can all kind of benefit and learn from each other. And I did this session earlier today during lunchtime, and I have a few examples on there that people built or got started on from that session. So you can see some products that BCSE teachers started with. All right. So here's a couple of tools that you can utilize for choice boards. You don't have to use these three. They're just some of the first ones that come to mind. Google Slides. I personally gravitate towards Google Slides because I feel like it's easier to manipulate the content on the page. But if you're someone who loves Google Docs, that's also another great option that you can use. And I have examples on here for both. You can also use the tool Canva as well. So Canva is a newer one for us as a district. We have a little bit more of an upgraded version of that. Canva for Education. If you have questions about Canva, I can send you some of my resources on getting started with that too. It's just another way to make choice boards. I will say Canva is probably the more difficult out of the three options on the screen. It takes a little bit more tinkering with it to make it look the way you want, but by no means is it impossible to use. It's just a little bit different than maybe Google Slides and Docs. All right, so here are some examples to kind of get you thinking about what choice boards can look like. So lots of different options on here. The first three that I have on the screen are all Google Doc versions of this, and I have them all linked on the slide deck, which I will share again because a few people jump in late, which is no problem. I got started right on the dot. Maybe I should have waited. So here is my master slideshow for those of you who just jumped on. Welcome, welcome. There it is. So that's the first thing I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share a different one with you here in a few minutes. All right, so here's examples of choice boards. If you click any of these pictures, it will take you to that specific example. And maybe you see one that you're like, oh, wow, I love this. I could use this right away. Perfectly fine if you like that. Just some options. But there's a couple of key things that it's helpful to keep in mind as you're planning your choice boards. So if you've attended any Universal Design for Learning training in this district, you probably have heard this before, but it's important that I always rehash it again. focus on the lesson goal first. So what are you trying to have students accomplish? Whether that's you're using choice boards for a bell ringer or something to get students excited to learn. What is the goal of that activity? Is it to help them review material from the day before, or is it really to help introduce a new concept? So what are some different ways that you can do that? You're using choice boards as a project method for students and how to structure a project. What are some of the different ways that students can meet the objectives and meet that criteria for the project in different modalities? And maybe that gives you some inspiration on the different project options that you can give to them. And something that's really important that I know sometimes when I was in the classroom, I was a little bit guilty of is start with the goal first and then consider the technology. Probably makes sense why I'm in this role, but I love technology and I used to get really excited about using new tools with my students, but it's really important that we pick a tool that really can support the goal rather than trying to do that retroactively, like trying to figure out, oh, I want to use this tool, so I'm going to build a whole lesson around it. No, it needs to be the goal that you start with first. And then it's also helpful to try to include a rubric or an exemplar from one of the choice board options, just so students can see what one looks like. And maybe that exemplar isn't on the same content that you have students demonstrate their understanding with, but it's just there to show them how they can use the tool or how you would like it to look in the end product. All right. So in terms of collecting student work, I'm just going to fly through some of these more administrative pieces here. It's Learning is a great way to collect all their responses, especially if you're having them create some type of product that's digital, or you want to have one common place for them to turn it in. And then you can also add your rubrics or examples or exemplars as a part of your It's Learning assignment where they go and turn that in so they see that before they get started on their own project. All right. So as promised, there's another link I'm going to share with you. And this is the one that has tons of ideas and examples and templates to get started. So the idea behind a make and take is you make something and you share it with everyone so everyone else can take an idea from this session as well. So there are a lot of ideas that you can take from on this slide deck. So the link I'm about to drop into the chat, you might want to have this pulled up on another tab on your device, whatever is easiest for you. And what that link is going to do is give you access to a slide deck that looks a little bit similar to the one I was just on, but has a lot more slides on it. Namely, because this is where we're putting all of these examples that you can get started with. So I'm going to drop the link here in a second. And what you're going to do is I'm going to go through this with you and peruse some of these examples of choice boards. And then what I would like you to do is grab a blank slide. They're a little bit further down. Claim that as your own and start making your own choice board. So if you're thinking, I really like one of the examples that's up here, you can right click, copy, or you can do Control-C and paste that on one of these blank slides. If you're thinking, I don't want to start from a totally blank canvas, I want to pull from one of these examples that is up here already. All right, so giving you access to this, you should all have edit access. Let me know if you don't. I should still have it set up to where you can jump on here and start writing and making things. And then you're going to grab a blank slide and start to make your own. Okay, and I'm going to walk through making a choice board with you. So I think it's helpful for me to kind of do my own assignment and work here. Okay, let me double check that I linked the correct one for you all. All right. I have too many tabs open and my computer is getting angry. Okay, so I'm going to share in the chat one more time. Okay. So that should be the slide deck where you have editing access. And all right, yep, I'm seeing some of you jump on this slideshow. If you have a question, definitely drop that in the chat and I can answer it for you. I know I'm putting a couple of different links with you today. Technically, if you have my instructions master slide deck, then you can get to this as well. It is linked on there. All right. So I'm just going to show you some of these examples and then I'm going to start building along with you and show you some of the resources that I like to use as well. Oh, thank you, Nick. I forgot to turn that on. Perfect. Okay, live transcript should be on now. Okay, all right. So here are some examples of different choice boards that you could make. I tried to put different ones on here. I'll be transparent in saying I'm not an elementary teacher, but I did find some really great examples out there that I know some of the primary people who were on this at lunchtime liked, and they even added some of their own examples on here too. So here are some different choices here, and I tried to show you the different tools that people use to make these. Again, you're going to grab a blank slide and just get going. But if you want to sit through and kind of look at some of these examples that I have on here before you dive in, perfectly okay. This is an example of a choice board for brain breaks. So maybe your first soiree into this type of activity, and making a choice board is just something that's really simple like this, where it's just a choice board that you show in class whenever you want to give students a little bit of a break before maybe you transition into the next activity, or if they've been working on something for a little bit, a way to break it up. All right, so this was made on Google Slides, just inserting a table, and then I added in some different pictures here, and I linked them to these different web resources, and I will show you how I did that here in a second. Other examples on here, this is another one made in Google Slides. Again, just added some little clip art pieces here, takes them to different activities. So if you notice on this choice board, there's a couple of different elements going on. So this one was just pick any one of these. This one, they have to do categories over here, and then they pick one of these other examples. So there's lots of different ways that you can structure choice boards, maybe where it's not a total free for all, but there's some things that students have to do before they go over to where they have those different options. Right, this is a little bit more of a simple one, basically showing how to solve for different math problems and equations. This was a middle school math teacher, I think, that made this one. This is a self-care one. So again, just a really quick example. This is a newer one, and people from the lunch session really liked this. So this is a this or that. So it's giving students options, but it can be really easy to put so many options out there that maybe students feel overwhelmed. This is a way to kind of scale it down a little bit, but still provide some choice. So the way that this teacher structured it is it's almost like these are different components of the lesson. So this first column here is, a bell ringer where they're reviewing concepts. The next one is some independent work. Next one is maybe group work or independent work again. And the last one is kind of wrapping up in that last mastery type of activity. So this type of choice board, this or that, can be really a structure for a whole entire lesson or a whole entire block of time versus just a smaller chunk like the brain break one that we saw a second ago. Here's another example like that, another this or that, where it guides students through the different components of the lesson versus just a small chunk of time. This was a blank one you can copy and start going with. Again, another one that's a little bit more of a full lesson choice board, this or that. Another full lesson option. Another full lesson option, but science example here with some more content in case we have some science teachers. Another full lesson. I'm actually going to go out of full screen mode just so I can see some of the different choices that are here. All right, and this is another choice board, but I will point out that on some of these where maybe the person started making the choice board and it's actually a part of a multi-slide presentation, I tried to link those examples on here as well. So for this choice board, this teacher built it to where this is the first slide on that deck, and it was made in Google Slides. So for this particular choice board, you click on maybe the project option that you want to do, and then it takes you to a slide that has a little bit more information and some of those expectations for that particular option. So if you're wanting this to be a very kind of organized, all in one place type of lesson, then you can make this in Google Slides and you can link to those other slides. So the way that I did that is I just typed out my little option here. And then I'm actually going to remove that link so I can show you. And when I added a link, Google is really smart in that if I had already built these other slides, which I had, and I click the link button, it sees, oh, that's similar to this slide title. and it selects that slide. Otherwise, I can always scroll further down and there's a button that says slides of this presentation, and I can select the slide number so that now if my student clicks this option, it takes them to the slide that has some more specific information on what they should include. All right, so that's an example there. A few others. These were some of the ones that people had created earlier. This is a study guide, tic-tac-toe choice board where the students have options in the type of review activity they can do. So you can go and cross things off as you do them. I'm gonna skip a little bit further. This was an example here as well that someone had made. Laura Ousley had made this one earlier. So she built this as being a whole lesson choice board as a part of her ELA class. So this is what they start with. Next activity there. So the students get some choice along the way, but they're still accomplishing a whole set of tasks. And then this one was another one. So we had Courtney Porman built this one earlier today too. So some of the different pieces that we had made. So it looked like someone had started already on a slide, which is awesome. So I went through some examples there. I skimmed through some of them quickly. So if you find one that you really like, definitely make a copy of it. A lot of the ones I showed you on here were Google Slides, but you don't have to use Google Slides. You can definitely use one of the Google Doc examples that I had up here earlier. And then on your blank slide, you can just add a link to your Google Doc. The benefit of all of you having editing access to this presentation is that we can all share something that we've started on. Maybe that sparks someone else's interest and you can learn and grow from other people. I know I found some really good examples on here just from looking at the different things that people created earlier. All right, do I have questions so far? I'm going to start building a choice board with you if you would like to follow me along in that. All right, well, if you think of a question and I'm in the middle of building something, don't hesitate to ask. You can definitely drop that in the chat or unmute if you would like. All right, so I'm going to claim slide number 29 as my own. And I am going to borrow from one of these templates that already exists because I like to borrow ideas versus having to reinvent the wheel every time. I kind of like this one. All right, we're going to go with this. And I'm going to copy and paste that on slide 29. Oh, sorry, I probably just moved someone down a little bit. Whoever's on 31, I'm sorry. All right. So a couple of things here whenever you're building your presentation. If you're wondering where can you find some of these themes, I pulled a lot of these just by Googling choice boards. There are some examples on Teachers Pay Teachers if you want to use that. Not all of them are free though. I found a lot of these also on Slides Mania is a website where you can get choice boards and templates. Slides Go is also really good. And then if you want to make your own pretty beautified template, you can also do that on Canva. You'll just need to export that to your Google Drive so that it actually works in Google Slides if that's what you're wanting to do. But a lot of these templates came from Slides Mania and Slides Go, and then we just plugged in some of our own examples. You can also just pull from this deck. Now that there's so many different templates on here, you don't have to necessarily go to any of those outside websites anymore if you like one on here. So I think what I'm going to do is make this about the choice board on UDL. So we're going to make this in this or that example, but we're going to make the topic UDL. So if you're wondering, where did they get these nice little icons and things here? If you're wanting to add icons, I strongly recommend doing that. It just makes it easier for your students to understand what's going on. It also gives them another option for language. Icons are really a universal language for all of us. It's easy for us to try to figure out what something means if we're unfamiliar with the word, if we have a picture. So there are lots of websites that you can use for adding icons onto a slideshow. You can definitely just use the insert menu on Google Slides or Google Docs and search for an image, search the web. That's one place you can go. Another place is just going to some websites that have icons. So one of those is the Noun Project. You can get icons from there. If you're wanting your icons to be colorful, Noun Project only has black and white icons on here unless you upgraded the paid version. So if you're wanting something pretty simple, this is the way to go. The other place you can go is called Flat Icon. And those are more colorful icons that you can copy and paste in, which is actually what I used on this example. I got all of these pictures from Flat Icon. It'll ask you for your Google account the first time you use it, but after that, you're fine. So I'm going to find a video icon here just to show you how we do that. Right, so I can search. If I find one that I like, I can open it, copy, and then I can paste it into my slide deck. Ooh, I did not mean to flip that. Resize it, and now I have it linked on my presentation. So that's an example of how you can add icons in. I can just repeat that process over and over. So if I want to link this out to other resources, I can also just use the hyperlink tool on Google Slides. So you're kind of getting a little bit of training on Google Slides from being in here right now. So if I wanted to find a video on what is UDL, and I really like this option. So I've got my, and I'm going to skip this commercial. Oh, there's another one that popped up, of course. I'm just going to click share, and copy that. Technically, you can embed the video as well because we're in Google Slides, but I'm just going to add a link. Highlight it, click the link tool, which is also Control-K.
Searching for a better
keyboard
way to
shortcut.
collaborate with your team? Try Miro, an online white.
And I can add the link in there. Same thing down here. Look over this infographic. I know I want to add a website. I can add that as well. And I can keep just plugging along. All kinds of examples and ways to use this. Looks like some of you, yeah, you're already going, making some. Don't feel like you have to rush through this or have a finished product. You're only getting started like I am. That's perfectly okay. Just to get the creative juices going. All right, read the. I'm just going to add another website onto here. Just keep going. All right. I probably should add some background music so you guys don't have to just listen to me clicking and saying all right 100 times like Matthew McConaughey. Noted for next time I do this. I'm curious to see what everyone else is creating on here. Oh, this one looks so good. Karen, this looks awesome. I love your idea of meeting an artist. me see. Oh, Brad's going away on his too. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. See, I love that we're all on this because you guys create so many great things that I would not have come up with on my own. We have all different subject areas on here. All right. Add this example. Awesome. We have more coming along. These look so good already. Nice job, everyone. If you want to make sure you get credit for your awesome design, you can add your name to the speaker notes, that little box just below the slide as well. If not, I'll add it back for you after the presentation. If you use one of these with your students, or even the one that you're designing right now, let us know how it goes. Please share. It's helpful to know what worked, and then I can share that with other people next time I do this presentation, or can help you talk through something if you want. Oh, it looks like we have one on here, PBIS related. Even more examples. Awesome, awesome. Oh yeah, Kathy's going on hers now. Add an I read stuff. Looks good. I'm gonna finish mine since we're getting close on time. These all look so good. It looks so good. I love that, Kathy, I love that you added lots of big picture icons. I think it's so helpful to do that, especially with your littles. It looks so good. And then direct links. Awesome. You guys keep building. Let me know if you have questions. I'm going to drop a few other links in the chat just so that I don't forget. If you're ever making one of these and you're wondering, I feel like I've come up with several options, but I don't know if my students would like these options. You can always add in an option that's just the student comes up with their own idea. And it's always fun to see what they come up with and what they would like to do to showcase their understanding. If you're worried, like, well, it's probably best if they talk with me before they just dive in and do that, you can definitely make sure that they have to check in with you and you sign off on it before they start building. But that can be a fun way too to let them have even more choice or autonomy in what they do, especially if they're someone who likes to build things. I am not someone who's very good with making things. I gravitate towards, this type of making of things, but I had a choice board activity one time when I was still in the classroom where I had the whole create your own project option, and a student made a whole 3D model related to what we were studying. And I thought that was so cool. And that was definitely not an option that I had come up with myself. But she knew what she wanted to do and she advocated for herself, and it was an awesome project. So it can also be a fun thing to do is to have them come up with something. Or even get their feedback on things that they want to see as options on your next choice board, whether it's a brain break choice board or study guide, review, or bell ringer. They usually have opinions, and they love the opportunity to share them. All right, so I am dropping a link in the chat, and this is the form to earn your professional growth points for being on here today. I'm giving you the full hour PGP just because I know building a choice board takes some time, and it's good to have that there so you get recognition for your work. It's also on my master slide deck that you had from the beginning that's also linked on email, newsletters, basically any communication I've had with you over the last few days. So it is there. You should be able to submit that and you'll get a digital copy of your professional growth points emailed to you. So we are technically 5 minutes over-ish on what I had planned. You still have access to the slide deck if you want to keep building. I'm not going to take away editing access on this. You still have it, so you can still build, work on this, make your own version of it if you would like, or maybe if you've been working on a choice board on your own presentation, you can still add that and link it back here. You'll still have access to it. You guys got a lot done in a short amount of time already. So you'll have access to this. I did record this, so I'm going to share out the recording as well. If maybe you wanted to use this or revisit this, can definitely do that. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining. I love to see what you guys create in a short amount of time. So please fill out that exit ticket.